All right. When must the closing statement be available for the buyer to inspect the closing disclosure?
It's 3 days.
Can everybody read that? Can you see it?
I can't see it. Hold on.
3 business days before closing.
Oh, I was right. But where is it?
All right. So 3 business days before closing. So we got that one. So closing statement must be available for buyer to inspect. All right.
Ugh. Oh.
I forgot. They don't tell you if it's right or wrong. Ah, man. I don't know that I want to do this one now. Do you all want to go? Because I forgot they don't let you see if it's right or wrong. All right. When the appraiser looks at the home Sandy just purchased, they notice it has a fireplace and the comparable homes do not. I don't want to do this one because if we can't see if it's right or wrong right away, then it's not really helpful because I don't know that we'll make it through the whole thing.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah. So scratch that one. And let's see. Are there options? Can we do one that? No. All right. Okay. So we know what the major ones are. Sorry, looking out the window at my kids. All right. So in the national, your major categories are general principles of agency, practice of real estate, contracts, and financing. State is license law and rules of the Ohio Real Estate Commission and brokerage relationships. So we're going to burn through as many of these as quickly as possible. So let's start with financing. All right. So the seizing of property by court order as security for a debt or judgment is known as
Encumbrance.
attachment. Good job. A homeowner receives a duplicate 1099 form from the bank showing how much interest has been paid over the last year and what principal amount is remaining on the mortgage. This document is a
Right.
Certificate of sale, maybe?
Certificate of sale. Anybody else?
C.
Certificate of title.
Shoot.
So we got certificate of sale, certificate of title. Anyone else?
Oh, wait.
All right, I got A in the chat. Certificate of habitation. All right, we got a bunch of them. So everybody's picking all of them. I'm going to pick this one. And I'm correct. Whoa. It's the estoppel certificate. All right. So basically this one, it's a certificate, sometimes certificate of no defense. Basically it's used to stop the mortgage. So this is saying at this exact moment, this is what's owed, this is what's been paid, that kind of thing. So think of an estoppel as stopping the mortgage and looking at it in that one moment in time. And so it's called an estoppel certificate. Everybody got that one?
Yep.
All right, cool. After buying property at a sheriff's foreclosure auction, which document would a person receive to prove he is entitled to the deed upon confirmation of sale?
Certificate of title?
Let's see what we got in the chat.
Certificate of sale.
So we got certificate of title. Everybody's saying certificate of title. I got 1A, certificate of sale. Oh, what happened?
Oh.
Why didn't it show me? All right. Well, Which type of single mortgage loan exists when two or more different parcels of property are or offered as security for the loan?
Wraparound? Is it wraparound or blanket? I want to say wraparound.
Which one?
Single mortgage.
I'm sorry, someone in my house has decided now's the time to print a book. All right, so which type of single mortgage loan exists when two or more different parcels of property are offered as security?
Blanket. I'm sorry.
Blanket. All right, correct. Good job. A partially amortized note that reduces part of the principal by the time the final payment is due is often called a...
Balloon.
Balloon payment.
That's right. Property is attached in order to... You all should remember this from the first question.
Right.
Provide security for payment of a debt or
Yeah.
judgment.
There you go. Good job. A blanket mortgage involves... Just answered this one.
Mhm.
A.
No. C.
Yeah, it's C.
Ah.
Yeah. Tricky. That was tricky.
Four more partials.
Yeah. So yes, it is C. Two or more parcels or property offered as security. So that's a blanket.
Yeah.
A lump sum payment of principal is due
Balloon.
at the end of which type of promissory note? Balloon.
Balloon.
All right. Each January, a homeowner receives an estoppel certificate from his bank indicating the... Man, they like to repeat these questions in different ways. And actually, the great thing is you'll see this on the test.
C.
C.
Yep.
Correct. So that's the beauty of the test is you'll see questions asked differently, and they can help you with previous questions. Interim financing used during construction of a building followed by long-term financing is called a...
Construction loan.
Construction.
Construction loan?
No, bridge. I don't know.
think
I
so.
feel like bridge.
Interim financing.
It is
Oh.
correct. Construction loan. So bridge loan is used when a buyer wants to buy a property even though they still own another property. So it's a loan until they can sell their property. So they're bridging the gap until they can sell the property they already own.
Right.
So that's a bridge loan. All right, way to go. Crush that one. Let's look at where was the one. Property is attached, seizing a property, lump sum. There it is. Nope. Owner see duplicate. Oh, here it is. Certificate of sale is what it was. So it was certificate of sale. All right. Let's go to, let's do general principles. That's a big topic that has more questions and is weighted heavier. An attorney, in fact, is best described as a...
B.
Attorney at law.
No. No.
You said C?
No. I thought it was power of attorney. I was going to say power of attorney.
Oh, you said D. Okay. Yeah, agent authorized to act on behalf of a principal. So, you know, they receive power under power of attorney. They don't have to be an attorney at law to be an attorney in fact.
So that's because I was taking this test and it kind of like, I guess maybe they reworded to, and then the answer is power of attorney, but I don't know, it's kind of weird.
Yep. So they're given power of attorney. So the authority is under the power of attorney. So you wouldn't describe an attorney in fact as power of attorney. They have the authority of the power of attorney, and they are an agent authorized to act on behalf of the principal. So again, the way they word the questions, they want you to be pretty specific. So, which is the best example of a special agent?
Let me see.
Everybody got quiet on this one. Had a lot of it.
Property
No,
manager?
I'm saying
I'm gonna
B.
say property manager.
I'm
This one
saying
gets
real
me every
estate.
time.
Real estate licensee.
I say property.
I feel like
All right.
limited agent. I don't
So I
know.
got a D in the chat. I heard limited agent. I said real estate. I heard
I
everybody.
don't know. I ain't gonna lie.
I'm going to do B.
You got to do B. All right. Let me see what the chat says. B. All right. Another B. Real estate licensee. That is correct.
Yeah.
Special
So,
agent. I'm gonna make a note of that.
yeah, special agent has limited authority and only can do one thing for the principal. So real estate licensee can only act on one behalf of the principal, and that's in real estate. So so again, it's limited authority. Brandon lists a property. Brandon finds a buyer. Is Brandon allowed to write an offer as a buyer's representative?
Yes. Brandon lists the property. Brandon finds a buyer. Brandon's allowed to write offers. Buyers yes. A.
A. Everybody agree with that? Well,
Yes.
whether you agree or, yeah, I was going to say whether you
Yes.
agree or not, it's correct. So, all right. An agency relationship created through a listing contract can be terminated legally without recourse under which circumstance?
Can be terminated. So C.
The buyer.
These were created through a listing contract can be terminated legally without recourse under. I mean, it could be A or C. No.
Could it?
Well, A or C. Yeah.
List-
But I want to say I'm
Read
gonna
the-
lean
read
on
the
A.
question again. What kind of contract is it?
A listing A, would it be
It's-
A?
Well, it wouldn't be
So,
C
buyer is
because
not
it's a
part of a
buyer.
listing agreement.
I'm gonna say A. That's why I say I could go with A or C.
Yeah, so a buyer would not be part of a listing agreement, so they are not part of that contract. So again, be careful how things are worded. It is a listing contract, which means it's only a seller. So that would be the listing broker dies. The listing salesperson is not on the contract. The buyer's not on the contract. Salesperson has nothing to do with it. So the only correct answer is listing broker. Once established through a listing agreement, what fiduciary duty does not ever end?
The last one.
D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
D.
Correct. A listing broker tells their buyer client that the seller is anxious to sell because they are delinquent in their mortgage payments and do not want the property to go into foreclosure. Such a disclosure is
B. Unacceptable.
Yes.
everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is correct. The sales agent has a duty to treat all parties to a transaction honestly and fairly.
D.
D.
All transactions.
Correct. A licensee has secured their first listing contract. The licensee most likely is considered a
Special agent. Yep.
you guys are picking up what they're laying down here. Which of the following factors would be most significant in deciding whether a broker was acting as a buyer's agent?
I would say A.
I would say B.
Mm.
A or B,
It's
huh?
probably is A, but I was just like if
They
they
always
created for permission. Wait a minute, which
Well,
of
you
the
don't
following
have-
factors will be most
you can be a
significant in
buyer
deciding
agent
whether a broker
without-
was acting?
But again, which is most significant in deciding whether a broker was acting as a buyer's agent?
A.
Correct. If they had an agreement, that is the most significant factor letting you know that they are the agent. All right. Someone said the screen's not updating on their end. Jenny, are you still having trouble? Are you still having trouble seeing it? S&T Realty had a listing on a property. After the property sold and closed, P&M Realty asserted its rightful claim to the commission. Which type of listing did P&M Realty have?
I want to say
B.
A.
Open listing.
I want to.
B.
I want to say no because that's if the buyer did it. So I would say D. Open
B?
listing.
All right. Everybody's thinking open listing?
Yeah.
Right.
Because if the buyer went and got somebody, then it would be
It's got me
exclusive.
questioning myself.
Well, that's the thing. That's
Is
how
that
these
your
tests are
final
going to go.
answer?
You're going to question yourself. And yes,
That's
it's
your
an
final
open
answer.
because remember, exclusive listing is, they would say exclusive agency agreement, or exclusive right to sell means that P&M wouldn't have a right to it because S&T listed it. So when you say exclusive listing, they're kind of saying the same thing, but they would say exclusive agency if the buyer could find their own buyer. But since it was another agency, it's going to be an open listing.
Okay.
So, and net just means the broker gets a predetermined amount after the seller gets whatever they need out of it. So the seller will say, "Hey, I only want $12,000 in profit from this," and then the brokerage would get whatever else came after that. So that would be a net listing. All right, way to go. Let's jump out of this one. We already reviewed all that stuff, so that was good. We got through general principles. Let's hit contracts. My goal is to get us through almost all these today. Oh, what happened? Oh, there we go.
We do
Contract.
calculations. I'm dead.
First instrument a buyer usually signs in a real estate transaction is A.
Offer
C.
to purchase. C.
Offer to purchase. Yes.
All right. Which is true of a voidable contract?
I would say C as well. Don't they have to be 18?
I'm thinking.
Which is true for avoidable.
I got C's. It's B.
It was B. I was going
So,
to say B.
It's the innocent
Because it's
party.
innocent party.
Right.
Yeah.
Option of the innocent party. So only the injured party has the right to void a contract. A buyer and seller have agreed to all terms of a contract. Both have signed the document. One party would now like to make a change. How would this legally be accomplished?
D.
D. The last one.
That is
D?
correct. D is correct. It can be changed by mutual agreement. They would just have to initial the changes or add an addendum. So it just has to be in writing. Once both parties have signed a purchase and sale agreement and the buyer's earnest money check is deposited in the broker's special trust account, whose money is it?
A. No, wait a minute.
Parties have signed the purchases.
The buyer, D. It's the buyer's money until it closed.
I don't know. I'm thinking A.
I would say D. I mean, but all depends on what happens before closing.
I would think it's the buyer.
So it's
I
I'm
think it's the
between
buyer's
I'm
money.
between
in
A
I'm
and
case
B.
gonna
something
say
happens,
A.
go back to the buyer.
I'm between A and B, but I'm leaning more towards
Yeah.
A.
I'm gonna say A.
Concealed
A.
earnest money.
This is tricky again.
What if I put this? And I'd be incorrect. It is A.
Yes.
So yeah, nobody's until the transaction is either completed, rescinded, or breached.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, until the offer is accepted. So they've both parties have signed the purchase and sale agreement. The money is in a sense the buyer's. So until it's accepted, the money's the buyer. Once the seller accepts the offer, the buyer may or may not get the money back, even though the seller will not be entitled to it until the transaction is completed. So it's money held in trust. That's why it's held in the broker's special trust account. Now, here's the interesting thing. I forgot that I'm in Ohio. In North Carolina, the money actually goes to the seller right away.
I'll be damned.
Yeah. So, so the seller actually holds the money. You take it directly to the seller once it goes in as earnest money. It's held by the seller. So I just forgot I was in the wrong state. All right. Ben is not quite ready to purchase, so he rents a home with the option to purchase after 2 years. Thus, this option to purchase is an example of a
D.
D.
correct on D. Anytime it's an option, it is a unilateral agreement. So the option to purchase is unilateral because the seller is held to the agreement. If Ben wanted to do it, the seller is held to the agreement. Ben doesn't have to do it. So it's unilateral because the option is one way. A subdivision developer employs Agent Sue to sell lots. John, a licensed agent, offers to buy lot B3 for $20,000. A sales contract is executed. However, through a typographical error that no one noticed, the contract identified the lot as D3, which was listed at $25,000. What is the contract status?
Oh.
A.
The voidable?
A.
A.
Everybody's going A?
Yeah.
That is correct. It is voidable. So, yeah. So, yeah, anytime a mistake that is mutual, material, unintentional, and free from negligence may cause the contract to be voidable. So, the developer may void it, though he may decide to honor the deal. So, it would be voidable by the developer in this situation.
Could it be changed at all? Like, could they decide to tweak it and then go through with the deal?
Yeah. I mean, they just have to do it in writing and everything. So yeah, it could be changed.
So, okay.
But again, at that point, it's almost easier just to write up a new contract because essentially all of the documents would be based on the parcel and the lot information on that one. So it just makes more sense to just rewrite it or honor the agreement for the price or whatever. So the basic requirements for an offer include
I want to say D.
objective intent,
It's C or D. I'm leaning towards D though, but I can't
Good.
remember.
subjective intent is what you're thinking, not what's real. So subjective intent is just like, what a person is thinking. So no offer or deal would include subjective intent because they'll use that, but just know that objective versus subjective. Subjective means it's your thoughts, and that doesn't form a contract. Contract law requires which amount of earnest money to be submitted with a sales contract? How much
C.
earnest money do you have to
C.
put down?
See,
All right, good job. A legal remedy that would compel a vendor to execute a deed pursuant to a valid land installment contract is known as a.
ooh, legal remedy that compels you to execute. Help land. I would say,
I think it's D.
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe A.
I got another D in here. So I've
I don't
heard
know.
two.
I'm thinking A. I don't know.
I
Yeah, that
got-
one got me too, because A do kind of fit. Yeah.
This is for a specific thing, and they're not redeeming anything. So I don't know. A or D.
All right, well, I've got more D's than A's, and it is wrong. It is A. Specific performance is what it is. So,
I was second guessing,
Whenever-
but
whenever that's what you sue for. You sue for specific performance. So that's the remedy that they would use to make them execute a deed and specifically perform the promises given for the installment contract. So it's specific performance. If Ed purchases a property from Susan by an installment land contract, when will title pass to Ed?
D.
Anybody else?
I'll go with D.
Oh, I got a B in there too.
Mm.
I got two D's though, so we're gonna go D, and it is B. So Wanda had it right. So when the deed is delivered to the buyer,
Oh, well, it makes sense.
yeah, they don't come into title until the deed is delivered. And that happens when all contract terms are fulfilled. In order to have a valid contract, the good faith deposit must be paid in the form of.
A.
A.
Correct. John, a buyer, makes an offer on Mary's home. Mary feels the offer is too low and makes a counter offer. John is not interested in paying any more than his original offer, so he doesn't reply to Mary's counter offer. 2 weeks later, Mary's desperate to sell and calls John to accept his original offer. Does John have to purchase Mary's home at his original offer price?
C.
No. C.
C.
Correcto. If the landlord, let's go back. Why C?
Because the original offer is no longer valid.
Correct. All right. If the landlord and the area real estate manager of a national retailer both execute a lease and the corporation fails to occupy the premises, what might prevent the landlord from enforcing the terms of the contract?
Oh, I remember this one. I think I do. I want to say C.
Yeah, C.
I agree.
That is correct. Broker Alice conveys an offer from her client to broker Betty, wherein Alice's client wishes to purchase a 300-acre farm by giving broker Betty's client $100,000, 2 one-year-old tractors, and 50 head of Black Angus cattle. What would the consideration offered by broker Alice's client be called?
C.
Yeah, C. I agree.
Correct. Valuable consideration. So anything of value, money, goods, services, property, That's consideration. Buddy wanted to offer to purchase the Walker's home. He engaged Joan to be his agent. When the offer was delivered to Mr. Walker, it contained a provision limiting the time for acceptance to 48 hours. Mr. Walker rejected the offer out of hand as inadequate. After thinking about it for 24 hours, though, Mr. Walker called Agent Joan and said, "I've changed my mind. I'll take Buddy's offer." What is the status of Buddy's offer?
A.
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 A, for sure.
Correct. All right. Way to go.
Oh, I barely passed.
All right. So this was definitely one where there could be some review. You all passed it, and there's definitely some review on this one. Okay. So this was contracts. So we had a few that were tricky for you all in contracts. So review contracts. All right. Practice real estate. And then we're done with the national section. Goldberg lists his home with PDQ Realty, allowing them to put a sign in the yard, listed in the MLS and advertised in the local newspaper. During the listing period, Goldberg sells the home to his brother, is not obligated to pay PDQ any commission. What type of listing did Goldberg have with PDQ? I mentioned this one earlier.
C.
That is correct.
Why did I think it was A?
We're on a different question now. Exclusive. It would have been A on the question prior. It is exclusive agency,
Yeah,
but exclusive agency was C on the last question.
got it.
But
I
I
don't
guess the open agency is when multiple brokers list it.
Anybody can. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So sellers negotiate a listing with a broker. So let's go back. Open just means that any brokerage can
Anybody.
sell it. The exclusive agency means that they would owe, if another brokerage came and bought it or had a client that bought the property, they would owe their listing brokerage. But because he sold it to his brother, he sold it to someone outside of a brokerage, he found his own buyer. That meant that he was able to not pay the listing agent because he didn't deal with a brokerage. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between exclusive agency and open. Okay. Because open means anyone can come and sell it. Exclusive agency just means that only the brokerage can sell it unless he finds the buyer himself.
Okay.
Sellers negotiate a listing with a broker stating that if they find their own buyer, they can save the commission. However, if the broker, their agent, or any other brokerage firm finds the buyer, then the sellers will have to pay the broker's commission. What type of listing did the sellers and broker just negotiate? Just talk about it.
Open
A.
listing.
A.
When is open?
Nope.
You
No.
said A?
I'm saying A.
All right. I didn't read that for comprehension, so let me read it again. First, find their own buyer. Save the commission. Oh, yes. Okay. Then you would be right with A. A is correct.
Yeah.
Because again, if any broker, their agent, or any brokerage firm finds the buyer, then the sellers would have to pay the broker's commission. That's what we just talked about. It's only if the seller found their own buyer would they not have to pay their commission. That's exclusive agency. Open listing means that any brokerage can get paid if they bring a buyer.
Mhm.
So they would pay whichever brokerage brought them the client.
But this question seems incorrect though, because it says if any brokerage found a buyer,
Right.
which
That would be
indicates an open listing.
No. It's saying they would owe their listing broker a commission if any other brokerage brings a buyer.
I see. Okay.
That's the difference. In an open, they would not owe their listing. They wouldn't owe the listing brokerage because it's an open listing. No brokerage has specificity over that listing. So it's open to all brokerage. Whoever brings the client, that's who they pay. They don't pay the listing brokerage because it's open. Does that make sense? They're not paying whoever listed it. They're just paying whoever brings the client.
Yep, no, that makes sense. Thank you.
Gotcha. All right. Seller Steve calls a real estate agent to list his home. Steve tells the agent that he wants $156,000 in his pocket at closing, and the agent can have the rest for his commission. Which type of listing would this be? I mentioned this one earlier.
Would that be net?
See?
Yes, net listing. That's correct. Which is not an element in an action for fraud.
Which is not okay.
Private affair must be an intentional. It's not an element.
So that
I
is.
think the first one, A.
No, I'm thinking D.
Since
All right, we got an A and a D.
I
it's
don't
saying
know.
it's not. It's saying it's not an element of fraud.
Not fraud. So the defrauder. In a conventional relationship, not an element.
I don't know. I think I'm gonna stick with D.
I'm sticking with A for now.
Any tiebreakers?
I'm gonna say C.
All right.
I don't know. I think it's D though.
Anyone else on the tiebreak? I got another C in the chat. So we got 2 on C, 1 on A, and 1 on D. All right. Well, I got to go with the majority on this one, and it's incorrect. It is D. So, yeah, the defrauded and defrauding parties must have relied on a confidential relationship. So there's no requirement that the two parties have relied on that relationship. So that's the only one that's not an element in an action for fraud. So there's no requirement there that they had to rely on that confidential relationship. There is no confidential relationship between a buyer and a seller. The buyer may maintain an action against the seller for fraud. An earnest money deposit, if any, is offered, is usually given to the broker at the time a sales contract is authorized by the offeror and presented to the offeree. Absent any contrary instructions in the sales contract, the broker has a legal responsibility to.
Ooh-wee.
I would say D, the last one.
I'm saying D.
And you will all be correct. A seller who lives in a small town has posters made up advertising their house for sale. They post them on many telephone poles around the neighborhood. As part of the poster, they advertise that they will pay 3% to any broker who brings them a buyer. This type of listing is a
D.
There you go. So now you all have what an open listing is. A real estate agent presents a full price cash offer with no contingencies during the initial listing period. The seller refuses to sign the contract because they do not like the buyers, which is correct.
Ooh.
Hmm.
I want to.
Wait, the seller
I'm thinking A.
the buyers.
We got anybody else? I got an A.
I'll say B.
What could be do?
We got
I
a
don't
B.
know.
Don't second guess yourself. I mean, don't say I don't know. You had it up there, and then we got a D.
I'm gonna stick with an A.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm with A.
A is correct. So I saw there was a D in there too. So the buyer can't sue for specific performance because there's no
They didn't
contract.
sign it. Yeah.
So no contract form means they can't sue for specific performance. And according to your listing agreements, your job as a listing agent is to find a ready, willing, able buyer. That buyer gave a full price offer, no contingencies, so they agreed to the terms that you offered. And if the seller does not, honor that, then you are actually due a commission because you did your job. You brought a buyer that paid full price, no contingencies. You did what your actual job is to do according to the contract. Now, are you ever going to sue a seller for your commission? Rarely, rarely. And it is there. A broker who engages in commercial or residential property management must have a special property management trust account to receive security deposits, rents, and other funds from tenants. This account may earn interest. Who is the beneficiary of the interest on the rental receipts?
I
B.
want to say C.
That was correct. During a listing interview, a seller demands the listing agent reduce the proposed commission by 1%. What is the best course of action for the agent?
A.
A.
D.
B.
I would say D, the last one.
Explain the commissions are generally fixed. B.
I want to say B.
Reduce the commission.
Well, isn't the commission set by the brokerage?
Yes. And
Right.
no, it's set between the broker and the seller.
Right.
So you call the broker and discuss the matter
Right.
because the seller is asking for a change. So you call the broker, because if you ever say that they're fixed in each locality, that's Sherman antitrust, and you will be caught up in a case. There is never a set amount. Don't ever let anyone get you to say that there is a set amount. Don't ever talk about it. It is Sherman antitrust if you discuss it with other agents, what fees you should charge or anything like that. That is between the broker and the seller. It is always negotiable. The difference between fraud and misrepresentation is that
Fraud is intentional.
Fraud is intentional
B.
for sure. B.
B. Yeah, B.
that is correct. A sales agent reads in the local paper that a seller is offering property for sale by owner with a 3% fee to any broker who brings in a buyer. The agent asks to show the property to a buyer. Which type of listing has the seller offered?
B.
B.
B. Yeah.
Correct. A real estate agent knows of a defect in a listed property but fails to tell the buyer. The agent is guilty of.
I'm thinking D.
Negligence?
It's
It's
B or
being
C. I think B though.
Oh, no,
That's
no, no.
fraud, 'cause
I
they
think it's
knew.
B. I'm sorry, B. Because
They
it's,
I
knew.
heard you say
It's
D. I was like,
intentional.
that's definitely
Yeah.
not it.
They knew.
Fraud. They are guilty of fraud.
I'm sorry. I had to reread it.
Yeah. So if they knew of a defect and did not disclose it, they are guilty of fraud. Misrepresentation is negligence. So they weren't being negligent. It was intentional misrepresentation. So it was fraud. Which type of listing is most desirable from the point of view of the broker?
D.
D.
Correct.
Oh,
A broker reads in the local newspaper that a seller is advertising a property for sale by owner and is offering 3% to any broker. What type of list? They want you to really know this. What type of listing is the seller offering?
B.
Open.
Yeah.
Apparently, they heard your conversations and knew you all needed help determining what an open listing was. They're like, we're going to hammer this home. All right. When is a broker agent entitled to a commission?
D.
The last one. When
D.
you're ready.
Correct. Per our discussion earlier. All right. You guys did well on that one. Way to go. All right. So that was the last of the national. Remember,
No
those
calculations?
those topics will be 55 of the 80 questions that you're going to see on the national.
Mm.
So it's going to be your practice of real estate, general principles of agency are your two big categories. Those are going to have the most questions. And then you're going to have contracts and financing.
No calculations? Please say no.
That's, not, I mean, calculations, you'll have like maybe 3 questions. You know, you're not going to have a lot of questions on calculations. That's not a huge part of the test. So again, 55 of the 80 questions are going to be those 4 topics.
And what were the 4? Can you repeat them again?
I'm sorry, I can't. I'm only allowed to say it twice.
I wrote it down for you.
No, it's practice of real estate,
Okay.
general principles of agency, and then those are your 2 biggest categories. And then you're going to have contracts and financing. And then for the state, 30 of the 40 questions are going to be license law and rules of the Ohio Real Estate Commission and brokerage relationships brokerage relationships.
All right, let's hit it.
All right. We got 11 questions on this one. So, oh, no, I did the vocab. I don't want to do that. All right. Practice test. There we go. All right. What would be a violation of Ohio licensing law?
Wait.
This is the lightning round.
E.
It's C.
See? That is correct. A broker and seller agree verbally that the broker will assist the seller in finding a buyer. The broker then finds a buyer for the seller, but the seller refuses to pay the broker a commission. What statement is true?
B, because the contract is not writing. Or is verbal binding in
I want
Ohio?
to say C.
Read verbally.
I don't know.
No.
I'm thinking C.
You're thinking C? It's B.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't in writing. You have no way to prove it. So a listing
'Cause it
must
says
be in
verbally.
writing
Oh.
to be enforceable. So revised code 4735.18, a listing must be in writing to be enforceable in a court of law.
Got it.
So the statute of law fraud applies to real estate listings. So it applies to real estate. So it has to be in writing. What protected group is covered under the Ohio civil rights law, but not under the federal civil rights law? Remember fresh corn.
C
C.
then.
Three.
Yes. Ancestry, not part of fresh corn. When advertising a listing, a broker offers buyers a $2,000 carpet allowance. What statement is true?
The first one.
A.
That is correct. All right. Buyers make an offer Buyers make an offer to purchase the property and to place $1,000 in earnest money into their broker's trust account. The sellers want the earnest money check made payable to them instead. The sales agent should.
B.
A.
Tell the sellers that the sale agent makes it.
B.
Hmm.
All right, I got B's in here. I hear B's, and B is correct. So remember, the offer and agreement, the purchase offer is an agreement between the buyer and the seller. So they are negotiating their terms. So their terms are that it has to be made to them. So yes, you should write a counter offer stipulating the seller's request, because if your sellers want that, then that's what you have to do.
Is it legal though to the buyer giving the earnest money directly to the seller?
Yeah, it's if that's what the contract states. So again, it's whatever it's according to the agreement of the parties. So whatever the parties agree to, that's what you do. So a purchase agreement can look like whatever the two parties agree on, and that's between them. Your job is just to, if your client wants something in that purchase agreement, you write it in and see if the other side will agree to it. At what point must earnest money be deposited into the broker's trust account?
D.
Want to say,
The offer
maybe
is
B.
accepted.
Maybe
Hmm,
B.
That'd be right.
I would think D.
No.
What did I just say?
Oh, wait. Keeping my
What
mouth
rules?
shut.
What rules all the terms?
B, according to,
Yes, according
Yeah.
to the
I
terms of
was
the
right. I
contract.
was about to
Yeah.
second guess myself.
Always according to the terms of the contract.
yeah.
So anything that's in that, it's according to that contract. That is the terms. So the contract always takes precedent. Real estate recovery fund claims are limited to what dollar amount?
40,000, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's 40.
Mhm.
That's correct. So that is the maximum amount for one licensee. So 2,500 is what they can fine per violation. 800 is the maximum amount for non-interest bearing loan that can be received for pre-licensing classes. And $1 million is the minimum amount that must be in the recovery fund. A sales agent is advertising his firm's listed property in a local newspaper. The sales agent must make sure that
B.
B, let's see. Broker's name appears of equal or greater prominence than the name of the agent.
Or D, sorry.
Could be
The
A
size.
too.
Hmm. Same size.
I mean, because A and D are kind of like the same thing. So
Well,
I don't know.
But the actual rule is that it must be equal or greater prominence. So, I mean, it could be in the same font, but it must be of equal or greater prominence than the name of the agent. So that is the actual terms. So.
you got me doubting myself there for a second.
I got finished so early.
Because we started early.
When a broker does not wish a salesperson to continue with his company, the broker
D.
I think it's A.
In 3 days.
I don't know. I'm thinking D.
Where are we going with?
I'm sticking with A.
A's have it, and that is
Yep.
correct. So, yeah, you must tell the agent immediately and also must send the agent a letter within 3 days.
So it's the 3 days is saying the same thing. Okay.
Yep. Although not mandated by statute, the Ohio Division of Real Estate recommends that for the purposes of document handling and record keeping,
Would it be D?
I don't know. I'm
Hmm.
thinking C, maybe. No,
Hmm.
B.
maybe B.
B, all agents should have ready access. B?
I don't know.
This is
I'm
tricky.
between B and C.
Yeah, I'm
Wait,
gonna say C.
maybe. So D makes sense though, as well.
Yeah.
Like, why would another agent need to access files from another agent? From another sales contract?
Not mandated.
all
Okay.
right, let you all group think this one. Which one is it?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with C.
I switched to D.
Okay. It's
All right, we
probably
got a C and a D. I've
C.
only heard-
B.
and then B's. You guys are all going to pick different ones.
I don't know. I'm between C and D. B and C are
I feel like D.
All
I
right,
said
I hear a bunch of D's, and that is
Yeah.
incorrect. It
Oh.
was C.
It was C. C.
Oh.
I keep second guessing myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what the
I
Ohio
sure
Division
said
of Real Estate recommends. No, you shouldn't give public access. You definitely don't want all agents having ready access to all the files. That would be bad. And then only the agent who works on the file should have access to that file. No, because typically it's with the brokerage, so it's not the agent that should have access. So typically a clerical employee should have access to it.
I see.
Yeah, so it should be kept under lock and key under the control of a non-licensed clerical person. What law requires a broker's license to be placed in close proximity to the federal fair housing poster?
D. Ohio
License.
licensing law.
Mm,
Mm,
Yeah.
That's correct. Ohio licensing law is the one that requires it to be placed in close proximity to the fair housing poster.
mhm.
What language does state statute require in a listing agreement?
Oh,
B.
it's either D or C.
I'm on D. I think.
I'm thinking it's D.
You would be correct in D. And as a follow-up, what is blockbusting?
Wait, no,
What is blockbusting?
because I always get blockbusting, steering, and redlining confused.
I know, everyone does. Well, not everyone. A lot of people do.
So redlining is mortgage related, right?
Correct. Redlining is all about
versus-
loans.
Okay, right.
But then
It's the
steering when you
loans.
convince others to like not buy or sell in a certain
In
area.
a certain area.
Steering is primarily buyers, not sellers.
So
Okay.
blockbusting is when you convince owners to sell for certain reasons, whether they're true or not.
Right, correct. So it's creating, it's making owners scared and causing them to sell. So that's blockbusting. So steering is buyers, blockbusting is sellers, redlining is loans. A buyer is going to make an offer on a seller's home. The listing agent asks the buyer for $1,000 in earnest money. The buyer does not want to give $1,000 in earnest money, but the listing agent says that this is state law. What statement is true?
A, because
A.
there's no law.
A.
A.
Correct. A salesperson asks that the broker return her license to the Division of Real Estate so she may transfer to a new broker. The sales agent makes the request in a certified letter, but after 10 days, the broker has not mailed the license to the division. What is true?
B, since the broker has a responsibility to handle that.
That's correct. They could lose their license for failing to return it. Yeah, so that's actually recently enacted legislation. So they have to give within 3 business days after the request is made. A closing occurred on September 30th, 2012. Under Ohio licensing law, the soonest the broker can dispose of the file is.
I remember this one.
C,
C.
7 years.
7 years.
I thought it was 5 years.
Wait a
5
minute.
years.
It might be
I
3.
don't know. I'm lying. I don't know.
No, it might be 3. So I'm going to say B.
I'm going to say you're right.
Yeah,
It is 3 years. All files must be maintained for 3 years from the date of the transaction. So remember, files are 3 years. A seller and broker agree upon a listing that would pay the broker a 6% commission if the broker finds a ready, willing, and able buyer for the seller's home. The broker finds a buyer who meets the seller's term, but the seller refuses to pay the broker's commission. What remedy can the broker pursue?
A,
Correct. They would have to sue the seller. An auditor appointed by the Ohio Superintendent's Office asked to review a broker's records. What must the broker make available?
Probably
B,
B.
Correct. All files. An agent is advertising his own property for sale. What information must appear in any advertisement that the agent places in the newspaper?
B.
B,
I'm thinking B.
You all are thinking correct. A broker's license could be suspended or revoked for what action?
B. Possibly.
C.
C,
After every random who signs a 5-year release.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I'm between B and C. So I'm leaning more B than C.
I've heard a lot of C's though.
But C is,
You locking somebody
I mean-
into something.
doesn't C
Like,
I mean, but it's
being
still,
counts
co-
as
I mean, but brokers
enticement?
don't do leases, do they? You know what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you do. You do.
Oh, you got a point.
C is
there.
correct.
Okay.
So it's a violation of license law because making the receipt of the radio contingent upon signing a lease. So, these are
Okay.
people who bought homes in the past, so you can do that. Purchasing a homeowner warranty as a marketing tool, as long as they write the inducement in the contract for all of the sellers. If they write it in the agreement, then that's fine. And then holding a raffle for TV to attend his open house, that's fine as well. Because, it's just people who attended, they don't actually have to do an action or sign an agreement or sign a contract. Who does an agent need to notify for a change of his or her home address?
Division A, the real estate board?
Yeah, A.
I want to say, I don't know.
It is the
Yes.
Division of Real Estate.
Okay.
So The division handles your licenses. So any changes, anything like that, whether you are changing brokerages, anything like that has to be done through the division. All right. Well, we made it through almost all of them. We only had one more left, and that was our brokerage relationships. So that was license, laws, and rules. So great job, everyone. It is 7:05.